Welcome to Kelly's Quest, the Transnational Journey, 50 states and 50 stories. Nicknamed the Constitution State, Connecticut has been on the forefront of transgender rights in the U.S. for many years. In 2011, transgender people gained full protections under state laws. And in 2020, Connecticut once again proved itself an advocate for the trans community. In May, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos threatened to withhold federal funding from Connecticut's public schools if the state continued to let trans athletes compete in high school sports. Governor Lamont stood firm in his support of trans athletes and did not back down. It was in the midst of these turbulent times that I sat down with Tony Ferraiolo on the beautiful seawall of New Haven, Connecticut. Tony is a mindfulness coach, artist, and advocate for trans youth throughout Connecticut.
Hey!
Hey, Tony.
COVID hug, COVID hug.
COVID hug, social distance. So we're down here in New Haven, Connecticut.
Yes.
The day after the election, again, it's so freeing to know that we don't have oppression from the federal level.
Yeah. No child should fear anyone, never mind the President of the United States. I was crying on and off. It was just like this feeling of relief. Like, oh, we don't have to hear anything bad about our community anymore because we're not bad people.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
I always say to people, like, you know, everybody in the world has a gender identity, everyone. But the trans community is the only community where people say, how can you know that? You can't be that, you can't be that, right?
That's one of the things that is used against us from childhood to prevent us from transitioning. Oh, I was told, you can't be transgender, you're an athlete. You can't be a girl because it's just a phase. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was one of those kids. I was a kid in the 1970s-ish that was misunderstood. And when I transitioned in 2005, I didn't really know trans people. And after I transitioned, I had this newfound energy for life. Prior to transition, my decision every night was, do you want to live the next day? And then after transition, I couldn't wait until tomorrow, and I still can't wait until tomorrow. But I said, you know, if I didn't know any trans people, neither do the youth of my community. So I wanted to start a support group, and the first support group I started was for trans teens, all right, 13 to 17. And I typed up this Word doc, and I went around at like 25, 30-mile radius of New Haven, and I handed this flyer to every single pediatric center and counseling center. I wanted to get the word out. You know, and so many times I would be standing in front of somebody and they would look at the flyer and say, there's no trans people in Connecticut. And I wouldn't disclose. I was like, oh, okay, but can you take it just in case a kid needs it? So the first group I had in 2008,
okay, 2
kids showed up. Second group, nobody showed up. But then they started coming and people started talking about this trans guy in New Haven that was helping these kids. I think we had a good base of about 10 kids that used to come every meeting, but their parents would sit outside in their cars doing whatever. So one day I went out there and I said, hey, I feel that you all should talk. You probably could help each other out. Mm-hmm. I'll get you a room in the building. And that's when the parent group was founded. It was probably like late 2009.
Okay.
Then I started, now everybody knows about me in Connecticut. And I started getting phone calls from the state and emails from the state saying, you know, Tony, we have a 6-year-old, we have a 7-year-old. And I was like, you know what? I will do an art group. And I call it Create Yourself, and Create Yourself is tattooed to my arm.
Okay.
For me, the whole concept of this art group was create, don't cut. As you know, there's a high percentage of trans and non-binary kids that self-harm. I was one of them. And the way I got away from self-harm was I started creating art. Okay. I gave myself a different venue to like throw my emotions at. So now we have 3 groups that still meet. We've helped over 1,000 families throughout the tri-state area. There's absolutely no cost to anything. They just come, and now we're doing Zoom, of course. And I knew that I had the responsibility when I took this role as a trans youth advocate to model kindness and happiness and inner peace. And that was hard for me. There's such a big difference between happiness and inner peace, right? So happiness, you get from outward stuff. Inner peace, you get from inward. You know, I'm a certified teacher of mindfulness, and I remember my first week, the instructor, Aaron Saraf, said to us, I just want you to be mindful of how much you're not mindful. And I would tell you 90% of my day, I was either thinking about something that happened or thinking about something that was going to happen. And I was never in the moment. And I had to do some work on that. Like, why aren't you in the moment? Well, for so many years, my moment was horrible. To live in my body was horrible. To live in abuse was horrible. So it took me a lot to get comfortable in sitting in peace and appreciating it. And I give that to the kids.
It's a huge gift to give.
We can walk our truth, and everybody deserves to do that. We know the difference. We've been in the darkness, right? Mm-hmm. And we know what it feels like to walk through to the light. So the work is so rewarding. When you see that shift in a child, go from hopelessness to hopefulness. If we give children hope for a better life, they won't want to take their life, period. It was found in a study from the American Pediatric Academy that one supportive adult in a trans or LGBTQ kid's life cuts the chance of them attempting suicide by 40%. 40%. And sometimes it's not the parents. Sometimes it's an educator. Be that one person. You're that one person. I'm that one person sometimes that looks at these little ones and says, you know what? You're okay. Yep. And I believe you and I see you, right? We're trying to minimize those harsh emotional roadblocks that some trans and non-binary kids have down the road to happiness when they're accepted before transition and then not accepted afterwards. It is our duty as adults to try to clear those blocks, right? And make sure that they know that there is a life for them out there and that we're going to help them and we're going to guide them along the way.
I think it's important for the parents to see that too, because there's a lot of parents that are just terrified, and then they see us come along and we're like, yeah, the society was hard. Like, I don't sugarcoat it. I'm honest with them. Yes, society was a pretty big challenge for me, but here I am. Look what I'm doing. Look what I've accomplished.
You know, Kelly, honestly, like I didn't feel my life was worth anything up until I transitioned, that I just existed. I wasn't, and I'm sure people who know me would think differently, and I appreciate that, but in my heart, and in my soul, I felt like I had a lot of freaking making up to do. That there was a world out there that I was seeing, finally. It wasn't all dark. And a lot of good things came out of that moment. Lots of good things. One of the things is I was able to walk my truth. I felt empowered. And sure, I'll tell my story. And if you can't tell, I love being in front of an audience. But also, I co-founded with Drew Levisser, my best friend. We've co-founded the Jim Collins Foundation. Jim Collins Foundation funds surgeries, right, for the trans and non-binary communities based on financial need. We founded that in 2008. We have funded close to 40 surgeries around the country. Wow. To trans people in need of gender-affirming surgeries that don't have the ability to pay for it. I mean, when I think about that, I never would have imagined the day I realized I was trans, that my life would be this good. The day I realized I was trans, I went to a beach to kill myself, because I couldn't imagine living a life as a trans person. Again, the only thing I heard about trans people is that they're getting murdered and their families were dumping them as like hot potatoes. But then on the beach, something inside of me said, stop, create yourself. Create yourself. And I started thinking about Tony, the physical Tony, what he would look like. He would definitely be tattooed, have a goatee. He would be bald. Maybe I didn't think that, but I'm saying it now. But I also went a little bit deeper because I thought this was the most important part, was what was he going to feel like inside? I didn't want to be angry. And as you know, anger is a fueled emotion. Anger comes from sadness, fear, and sometimes frustration. I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to have the energy of my being that when I'm standing in front of you, you just smile. Yep. And sometimes when I'm out and about speaking, like, you know, pre-COVID, and I know it's going to happen again, people will say that to me, just being in your energy makes me smile. And I think to myself, holy shit, I'm here.
Well, what more can you do in life than make people smile?
Oh, I love it.
I mean, that's huge.
2011, gender identity and expression was added to our anti-discrimination bill. In 2005, there wasn't any protections. And when I had to go to my employer and tell them that I was transitioning, and I'm a manager there, and I manage, at that time, it was probably close to 50 people. I didn't know if I was going to have a job after I told them. And even though when I went into the HR person's office and I said, you know, I'm going out for surgery, they said, oh my God, you're going to be okay. And I said, I'm going to be even better. And I explained, when I walked out of there the day before my chest surgery, I didn't know when I went back if I was going to even have a job. But then I got home from the hospital, and 2 days later, there was a knock at the door. and I opened the door. It was a florist standing there with a big plant. And this plant had all different plants in it. And it also had a card from the HR person that said, sorry, it gets me, congratulations on your new journey. And every plant said something like, to a new future, to prosperity, to happiness. And I said, holy God, I'm not going to lose my job. And you know what that feels like on the other end. So I contribute my success and my good start off to Madison Company, because if it wasn't for them, that newfound energy I was talking about before would have been spent on, oh no, how am I going to pay my rent? Oh no, how am I going to feed myself? Oh my God, my bills. And I was able to take all that energy and put it towards the youth in my community, which I am forever grateful to them. With these athletes like Connecticut, there was a big deal going on with trans athletes. So I want to explain something, and I'm sure you know this, but you know, the audience might not. In Connecticut and other states, there are hundreds of trans athletes that are participating in sex-segregated sports according to their gender identity. The only time we hear that it's a problem is when they're winning. I want you to think about that. These poor trans kids that aren't great athletes, but they're trying, nobody cares that they're on the team. It's only when they're winning. So what is it really about? You know, Governor Lamont had a gun to his head by good old Betsy, and she threatened to take away federal funding if they didn't change the way they were dealing with trans athletes, and he said, take it away. Not changing it, which I was just like warmed to my core.
It's a battle that never should happen. I play the sport of disc golf.
Yeah.
And I'm the first openly professional disc golfer, trans disc golfer to ever compete.
Congratulations, that's a big deal.
But somehow or another, it feels like I am the determiner of whether another disc golfer is a man or a woman. If I can beat you, then you must be a woman. But if you can beat me, you must be a man. It's how it feels like almost. Because women beat me at disc golf all the time, but then they still complain about transgender women being athletes, and I'm like, wait, you're a better disc golfer than I am. I'm a trans woman. Does that mean that you are? And it's real confusing, and it's because I'm good at the game.
Yeah, it's very sad, and it's sad for the kids because, you know, sports is a big part of growing up. It's a big part of self-esteem, and, you know, they have so little already.
Yep.
You know, especially if they're, you know, I don't candy coat parents either, because here's the reality. Your kids know who they are. And especially the young ones, if we honor them and put them on blockers or puberty interrupters, whatever you want to call that, and 3 years later they say, oh, oops, I'm not trans, then we take them off of the hormones, as long as the puberty blockers, as long as cross hormones have not been administered, testosterone and estrogen, and their bodies go back to the way they're supposed to be. I am working with Huckle Inclusive, and friends of mine just opened their own consulting business. We're working on an inclusive puberty and sex talk, because we are kidding ourselves, and we are not being true to young humans if we're going to teach sex and puberty like we did in the 50s.
Yep.
And it's not the same. You know, if you have a body that has a vagina, then this. If you have a body that has a penis, then this. You can't attach gender to genitalia. There's no magic string.
Nope.
That goes from your genitalia to your brain. And for the audience's sake, I'll give you a good example. You have a cisgender, non-transgender man who had cancer or was in a car accident, and they had to take his penis off. Would he no longer be a man? Of course he would, because his gender identity lives in his brain.
Yep.
That's why there's a big difference between sex assigned at birth and gender identity. Sex assigned at birth, some stranger looks at your genitalia and says, hey, this is who you are. They don't even know you, right? Right? I always say to parents, you should just say, hey, we had a baby. We'll let you know in 4 or 5 years what the gender is.
That's what my
if they
friend
have
is
a gender.
doing right now.
If they have a gender.
That's what my friend is doing now. Everybody wants to know what the gender of the baby is, and she was like, buy my baby primary colored clothing.
Yeah.
When my baby tells me in 4 years what their gender is, I'll share it with you. That's all I know right now.
How wonderful is that?
But that kid is going to grow up being okay with whoever they are,
Yeah.
and not have to question that. And what a gift that is that a parent, that's probably one of the better gifts that a parent could ever give a child.
Because if the only thing everyone in this world did, the only thing, was focus on friendliness. That's it. You don't have to go out of your way, you know, smile at people. When they smile back, we know what it feels like to be kind.
Yep.
And it's awesome. And we know the lightness of kindness. versus the heaviness of being angry. But sometimes, you know, like these little ones, you know, in my books, I ask them hard questions. One's a hard question, one's a lighter question. But what makes you sad? You know, what does body dysphoria feel like? Why do I ask them these questions? I want other people to know what they're going through. You'll never understand if you're not trans or non-binary what it's like to be. I don't know what it's like to be cisgender, but I still honor cisgender people too, even though, you know, we're cooler than cisgender people.
Yeah,
Sorry.
sometimes I just scratch my head and I'm like, huh?
But parents need to know that, you know, the biggest lesson I learned in my life when I was going through my IPEC coaching certification was not to hold people to my agenda. You know, don't hold your children to your agenda. Don't hold your children to who you thought or who you want them to be, no matter what it is, gender, career-wise, whatever. Allow them to walk their truth.
It's a wonderful feeling for me to express my authentic self to the world and not be ashamed of it. Those two things had to go hand in hand for me. Yeah. What happens when you come up against that parent that you've still not been able to work with, and you've got the kid that's the cutter? How are you working with those children?
Well, I work with them, and we help them create another family outside of their family. With these kids that their families just aren't going to be on board, I just help. I become a parent, and it's amazing because they'll call me every day or they'll text me every day, and I'll be there. I'll be present for them. And then all of a sudden, you know, we're helping them create a new family, like new friends, and the texts slow down and the calls slow down. And then I'm like, hey, how's it going? Oh, I'm doing great, right? So I'm there when they need me the most, and I have to be able to let them go. And sometimes it feels like, now I know what a parent feels like when their kid's going off to college or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I get that, you know, emotionally invested in their well-being. Though, I must say that when we're dealing with kids that are struggling and they're struggling with the same stuff that we struggled with, it's very emotional.
Yes.
But in the moment that I'm with them, I have to be super focused on them. And then after the phone call ends, I just deal with it the way I deal with it. And I've learned through years to not like get really upset, but to meditate and have gratitude that if it wasn't for that moment in my life, I would never have been able to direct this young human away from his moment or her moment in her life. Does it make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I heard you saying that you are a coach in mindfulness.
Yeah.
If we could possibly find a nice, comfortable place somewhere, and you could teach me how to
Oh my God, I'd
deal.
love to. Okay, let's do it. I have a
Okay.
perfect spot.
Oh, fantastic. Let's do it. Me personally, this is something that's hard, is to sit still.
Yeah, what I'll do is we'll do a very short mindful meditation. We'll do a kindness meditation.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times, you know, instructors, and I'll do it too, I'll say like, you know, think of somebody that you want to bring kindness to, but I will encourage you to bring it to yourself, because a lot of times we need it.
Yes.
Body, mind, and spirit. And I'm going to stand here so I'm socially distanced from you.
Okay.
I typically tell people to close their eyes, but some people don't like closing their eyes. So if you don't want to close your eyes.
I don't mind closing my
Okay,
eyes.
so close your eyes. Feel your presence and start focusing on your breath. Focus on the inhale, focus on the exhale. Your mind's probably thinking of something else. When it does, just bring it back to your breath. And let's send kindness out to someone. As I mentioned before, you could send kindness out to another being, or you can just bring it in and bring it into yourself, and it's up to you. It's your practice. I'm going to meditate with you too. So I would love for you to take your right hand and place it just gently over your heart. And to yourself, we're gonna say a mantra together. Remember, focusing on your breath. Inhale, love. Exhale, kindness. Inhale, love. Exhale, kindness. Inhale, love. Exhale, kindness. I want you to remind yourself of the love you have for others, and I want you to bring that into your body. Self-love, self-compassion. You deserve every bit of it. You are spreading the word of peace and love to the universe, and the universe is going to give it right back to you. Accept it. And inhale love. And exhale kindness. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So I want you to, if you don't mind sharing with me, and I guess and everybody else, what's the emotion you're having right now?
Gratitude. Gratitude that I have people around me that I can bring their love for me into my life. That I know there are people that love me. And relief that I like who I am.
Yes. Yes, self-love.
That I understand that I am a compassionate person.
You give so much out, it needs to be a circle, but you have to accept it.
Yeah.
And in order to accept it, you have to feel that you absolutely deserve it.
Yep.
And a lot of times coming from the past that we have, the trauma of being trans sometimes. There was a trans woman at a conference once, and she said, being trans doesn't mean you're crazy, but being trans can make you crazy. And we have to remember that our community struggles, and a lot of times it's not because we're trans, it's because everybody around us and the way they treat us. So it's very important to block those external influences when you're feeling them and sit with yourself. What you felt was inner peace.
Yep.
And that's something that, Kelly, no matter where you are, who you're around, you can tap into that all the time. It's yours.
Is it hard to get a 13-year-old to buy into the concept of mindfulness?
I never announce it. So I never say, hey, so come on, want to do mindfulness? No, I say, hey, do me a favor. I want you to start focusing on your breath, especially if they're in the middle of a full-blown anxiety attack. And a lot of times that's when they call me. They could barely talk, they're blah, blah, blah. I try to slow them down and bring them in the moment. And then what are you grateful for? There's got to be something in your life. And I'll tell you why I asked that question. I was sitting in my apartment before I bought this house years ago, and I was ready to end my life. I was like, what the hell do I have? I got nothing. Nobody loves me. This is how I felt. Nobody cares about me. I can't live the way I want to live. I don't know who I am because I didn't know I was trans, but I knew I wasn't a lesbian. It was really a funky brain thing I was in. And then I looked up and I saw the ceiling. And I said, well, wait a minute. I have a roof over my head. And one time in my life, I was sofa surfing. Okay, I didn't have a home. And I said, I'm grateful for that. And I started focusing on that. And like I tell people all the time, it is so important for yourself to focus on what you have, not on what you want. And if you want something, work for it. So work hard for what you want, be grateful for what you have, and just be kind are the three things I live by. Because kindness is contagious. A smile is contagious.
Yes,
a laugh is contagious. If we give kindness, we will get kindness back. Yep. Especially being kind to people who are not kind to us. That is when you truly take your power back. The majority of us are not born to hate. We're taught to hate. You have a choice. Kindness is a choice. You have a choice to be kind. Choose it.
The times that I sleep the worst are the times when I think I have done something to harm somebody's growth. If, I carry it with me. If I feel like I've talked to a kid wrong, then I think that children need to see adults apologize.
Yeah, absolutely.
And see adults say, oh, I think my students need to hear that when I transitioned, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I had to transition. I didn't really understand what was going to happen in the future. I didn't even understand how I was going to make it happen. But I just knew it was something that I had to do, and I made a lot of mistakes during that journey. But here I am on the other side of it.
You created yourself. You're creating yourself. How wonderful is that? Every human should be doing that, no matter if they're trans or not. You know, I mean, honestly, and I want to just say this to you. You know, I know how it feels when you think you probably could have helped somebody a little bit more. I'm gonna challenge you to go into your meditation practice next time, and take it as a learning opportunity. Right? So you know, I always train on this too and tell people, you know, before you speak to somebody, allow your words to pass through 3 gates. Are you ready? Is it kind? Is it true? And is it necessary? Now, we all know about truth and kindness, but is it necessary for you to say it to the other person? Does it bring them any value? Does it bring them happiness? Or are you just saying it to get it off your chest? So if we're living in the now, we pause. There's that space between stimulation and reaction. That we pause and we think about what we're going to say.
Yep.
Right? I want everybody to start practicing that. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to be halfway through a sentence. You're going to say, oh my God, I probably shouldn't have said that. That's not true. You have the opportunity to turn it around and end it.
Yep.
And then the easiest part of this practice is after you say it, you realize, probably shouldn't have said that. Don't beat yourself up. Take it as a lesson.
Yep.
And I'm sure in your mind, it's probably a lot more than what it actually probably was. Always. We're our worst enemies. They're going to be there waiting for you. And I love how you said, even educators, when you say something wrong, correct yourself and apologize.
I have a friend that, when he said the most powerful thing that he can do is when someone comes out to you, say, "That's awesome, thank you for sharing."
Yeah.
And that simple act right there, saying that.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Have a seat.
Thank you. Exactly.
I want to go by Tony, and he now, okay, Tone, have a seat. Great. That's awesome. An amazing view. I want you to get the experience. So when I tell people I hold gratitude for my life, I always hold gratitude when I'm sitting here and when I walk in my home and walk out of my home. And this is why I give so much. I mean, I give a lot to my community. I give a lot to the New Haven Pride Center, shout them out.
That's a courageous thing to do also, I feel, is to create something that you're willing to have other people go and look at.
Yeah, and they're my emotions through transition. A lot of my stuff, there's one hanging in my house over my couch. It's called I Bleed, and it was, when I was healing, I wanted to paint what it felt like when I was cutting. So everything that I do, mostly every painting, is my emotions on canvas. And now I feel my heart has healed most of the pains. I'm able to go back and even go deeper into the pain that I had and create something even more powerful.
You were talking about earlier, was you transitioned in 2005.
In 2003, or 2002, 2003-ish, I started hanging out with Jean Dolan and Kathy Dunn. We started a lesbian band called Vertical Smile, Not Lying. That was the name.
That's a great name.
And I'm a singer-songwriter, and we were playing a lot of my music, and all the three of us were singer-songwriters. Growing up, I used to be teased relentlessly about facial hair. I had facial hair. I didn't have this much facial hair, but I had enough that after puberty, I would shave at least twice a day and be made fun of by adults. It's horrible. And Jean Dolan and I were out for breakfast, and she said to me, Tone, it might, because I changed my birth name to Tony, but with an I, because I wasn't ready. I didn't know I can change it with a Y I was wearing. And even the judge at probate court said, "Are you sure you want the I?" I always kind of presented kind of butch. But anyway, she said to me, what would be really cool, Tone? We should go away some weekend and just have it grow out, like really cool, like just have it grow. And I remember when she said that, I felt this sense of like relief, like I don't have to hide it. It was exhausting. That next weekend, she came to my house with her girlfriend, now wife, and she brought over a documentary called Gender Knots. It was a bunch of trans guys on a beach. This was the scene I remember. And one guy unbuttoned his shirt and said, "I had my chest surgery." And I was like, oh my God, I'm trans.
That was the moment.
That was the moment. And I sat back and I was like, oh my God, and I did a cartwheel or two, not really, but in my own head.
Oh no, I believe you did.
No, I can't. Then I got like scared. Like I said, I didn't know anybody. I couldn't imagine being happy. And then I went to the beach to end my life, and a voice inside of me said, "Stop, create yourself. Stop, create yourself." And I knew that I had the power. At that moment, I had the power to become Tony. And I'm gonna tell you, it didn't happen overnight. And a lot of times when I meet people now, or even people that I've known, when I bought the house, they say things to me like, "Oh, must be nice, must be nice." And I always remind people, don't judge me from the chapter you walked in on.
Yep.
A kid comes out as trans, like say in their teen years, 13, 14, 15, they say to their parents, "Listen, I need to get on testosterone or whatever, blockers," and the parents are like, "Well, how do you know that? No, they didn't just figure this out. They've been dealing with this for years. They just told you." Parents, please, if you do one thing before your child graduates high school, change their name legally so it's on their diploma. Give them that. Give them that, because what I say to parents a lot is you don't want to be the parent who's standing in front of a grave saying, "Shit, I should have called you Tony. I should have honored you." What is it? First of all, if you have a kid that's coming out to you, congratulations to you that you've raised somebody who has that much courage.
Yep.
So first of all, kudos to parents that do that. Don't be afraid of it. You also need support. You know, I have a parent support group since COVID. We're doing it nationally. You need to be around other parents who have felt that way and have come through from fear to acceptance. I do a workshop from fear to acceptance. Don't believe what you hear. I'm a very successful trans person. Kelly's a very successful trans person. There's a lot of very successful trans people in this world. My best friend Drew, he's an attorney. He's a trans guy, he's an attorney. A lot of attorneys are trans, I don't know why. So it's not a death sentence, and it's certainly not a disability. It's their identity. And the only way they're gonna be productive and happy is if we allow them to walk their truth and just guide them with love and compassion. And for parents, this is when unconditional love is challenged. You know, I had one parent that was really struggling, and I said to her, let me ask a question. When you were pregnant, and people were asking you, what were you having, what did you say? And she was like, well, we didn't care as long as it was healthy. I said, then why does it matter now? Why does it matter now? So honor these little young humans, and they'll have a really, really happy life. And if you ask your child what they need and they tell you, believe them. And it might not be the right time to give them what they need because of age restrictions or whatever, but certainly don't dismiss it.
I think that parents are so used to being the engineer of their child's life,
Yeah.
that when it comes to gender identity and to being transgender and your child coming out to you, all of a sudden, you literally are the conductor on the caboose of the train, and your child is now the engineer of this journey. And I think that messes with a lot of parents to know that, wait, I have to follow the lead of my child right now. And that goes against what a lot of parenting is thought to be.
Yeah.
And I give credit to all these parents that I've met that are like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I want my kid to know that I love them.
The
So
mama
here we
and
go.
papa bears of the trans and non-binary community, I salute you.
Yes, indeed.
I hold a
indeed.
lot of gratitude for you.
After the relaxing mindfulness session and the ceremonial signing of the disc, it was time to make our way back home. Meeting Tony reaffirmed my desire to work with trans youth. I know the trans youth of Connecticut are in good hands with Tony there. Look at that. I want to thank everyone who made a donation. Your generosity is what makes the Transnational journey possible. To help grow the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.